independent in thought and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
California's most destructive fire ever. Camp Fire scorching more than 100,000 acres, destroying more than 6,700 homes and buildings. Sean Field is one of 27,000 people desperate to see what's left.
Do you have any idea if your home's still standing?
No.
Not at all.
I just asked a PG&E guy if I could pay him to take a picture.
Community pulling together as volunteers hand out supplies to residents impacted by the fires.
Yeah, it is an absolute nightmare. California it's a battle. I mean, this is huge. And as I've talked about before, we've discussed how big these things are. I don't think people really understand that from other parts of the country. Maybe they'll have a fire here or there. And just like we don't understand tornadoes in certain parts of the country, if you're from, from the West Coast or if you're from the East Coast, you don't understand certain things. But these are massive. They are beyond huge, and it is getting uglier and uglier. And it's not just an area. You've got Northern California with the Camp Fire. 300,000 people have been evacuated statewide. You've got, God knows what's over 120,000 now acres just up there alone. You've got the Woolsey fire. You've got several fires across the state that are devastating, and they're pulling away from one another certain areas. Because where something may come through, then it's okay. There it is. It's come through, whether it's a tornado or this, that, and the other. Then everybody together can go and try to do the best they can to fight. Where this thing, it's popping up, and we got one over here. No, wait, it's over here now. We got one over here, and it's growing. And you've got the weather, which is not being a helper here, because you've got Santa Ana winds. For those of you who don't know what Santa Anas are, they call them the devil winds, and they come when it's hot. Normally it's September, October, but here it is we're heading towards mid-November, and this is still going on, and it is ferocious.
In the past year, almost every large fire has broken records. The most acreage burned, the most homes lost, the most people killed. CAL FIRE Battalion Chief Lucas Spellman says you can debate the cause, but it's now the new normal in California.
It's really a new age of firefighting now.
And CAL FIRE says, frankly, it doesn't know what it can do to change how it attacks flames to adapt to the changing fire behavior.
Yeah. And it's like that. I mean, you have no idea. It goes from one place to another like that, and it burns so fast. So with all of this going on, what do you have? You have politics, right? Because you just can't have a situation where we go, oh, my God, one of our states is in trouble. We need to do what we're supposed to do. No, you've got to have politics. And you've got a president who's not a huge fan of California politics. And you've got people who are running California politics who can't stand Trump. So who was going to fire the first one? Trump.
In addition to that blaze, local authorities now finding themselves in a political spat with President Trump, who tweeted this morning, with proper forest management, we can stop the devastation constantly going on in California. The president of the California Professional Firefighters Association responding to President Trump with this. The president's message is ill-informed, ill-timed, and demeaning to those who are suffering, as well as the men and women on the front lines.
Absolutely asinine thing to say when you've got 230 plus people missing. You've got numerous deaths already from this. Statewide, over 300,000 people have been evacuated. You've got little towns like Paradise, which don't even exist anymore. They've been wiped off the map. And while he may be right, because we've talked about it on numerous occasions in California, the way that they do things, just look at this train. We can't even get the train done because the environmentalists don't want it to be coming through certain areas. So they've said on over 100 occasions, there are just certain things they don't want to do, and they don't want to touch the forest, whether it's the water or this, that, and the other that they've got up there. So, yeah, that may be true, but you don't need to fire this off, right? And then the other side of things, you got Governor Brown who comes out, and he's got to take on Trump head on, and I don't think either of them need to be doing it at this point in time.
Forest management is one element. It's only one. And we have to take care of the whole range of threats and conditions and actions that are part of our living with fire threats.
Yeah, it is just absolutely just doesn't need to have happened. Somebody just texted me from Paradise and with pictures of what their house and everything used to look like, and God bless you, it is absolutely awful. There's nothing left. I mean, these pictures, there's nothing left. You don't even know there was anything there. It's just remnants of something. We don't need to be fighting. You don't. You need to be figuring out, okay, how is the best way that we attack this, right? Trump doesn't need to make some sort of half-assed attempt to blame climate change, people who just treat it like a religion as this is their fault. And on the other side of things, we don't need Jerry Brown coming out and say it's all kind of because of climate change.
Managing all the forests in every way we can does not stop climate change.
No. But I have news for you. We had lots of fires before, and we'll have fires again. And one thing right now is we don't need the political fighting, but that's what we've got. Before the last bullet was fired the other day in Thousand Oaks, guess what we had? We had politicking after politicking, and it was awful. Now what do we have? We got more politicking and more politicking when people are suffering and nobody's paying the damn attention because it's all about their politics, right? It's all about their politics. Well, we better figure this out. It's climate change. We better reduce everything, make sure everybody drives in electric cars, or maybe we'll just go back to horses, but we can't have that, so we'll just make everybody walk everywhere. And Trump's like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Humans aren't a part, blah, 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 blah. California sucks, horrible, blah, 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 blah. It's a bunch of crap. It gets us nowhere. Zero, zilch, nada, period, case closed. You spill the milk. Rather than pick it up, both of them argue over what's the best way to pick up the damn milk. What's the best way to clean it up? All the while the milk sits there and nothing gets done. Welcome to modern politics. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Speaking of modern politics, for those of you who thought the election was over last Tuesday, you would be wrong. The battles are still going on. Arizona, still not sorted out. And then you've got the curious case of the continual useless things that happen time in and time out when it comes to Florida, and the lawsuits are battling it out, and it's not going to stop anything at all.
These are mail-in ballots. Now, under the current law, they have to be received no later than 7 p.m. on election night. In their suit, Democrats say even if they're mailed on time, those ballots could be held up by the Postal Service and, through no fault of the people who cast them, disqualified because they don't make it to their destination in time.
Wouldn't you think, right? Like, because everybody watched you in 2000 and you screwed up. Every time there's an election, you continue to screw up over and over and over and over and over again. You would think at some point in time that you would get it right, but it doesn't feel like it's getting done the right way. And now what do you have? You've got lawsuit after lawsuit. So where election night finished on Tuesday at midnight, as far as that day is done and we're moving on to something new, it's now time to start, hunkering down for 2020. You still have massive amounts of votes not counted in Arizona, Florida. You've got lawsuits in Georgia. And how many in California aren't counted and may not be counted right now because of all of this stuff? Not that I think it's going to make a huge difference in some stuff, but still, some of that's just antiquated, and some of it is because of nature and what's going on there. And then in Florida, you look out there and you're like, well, wait a minute here. You got stuff that seems to be happening in a very bizarre way where votes are just showing up, and how are they showing up and why are they showing up? And then you had Gillum who already said, yeah, you know what? I concede. Now he's coming back and saying, yeah, I'm not going to concede right now. So I'm going to rescind my, I'm just like, sweet Jesus. How do we get here? How do we get here? How do we get to this point where you guys have failed so poorly? How is it that we're at this point where this is such a massive joke? And you didn't even drop the ball. You didn't even try to catch the balls the way I feel. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Love hearing from you. It is crazy out there. It is. You step back and I'm like, Arizona is turning purple. And I know the Republicans are having a tough time with that. And that's just changing demographics. That's the way that's going to be. I've said it. It's changing. It's purple. It's always been a purplish state, Florida. The battle has always been there, but their failures, both of them, their failures to do things where you're literally looking at hundreds of thousands of ballots not counted, and we're days past, we're heading into a week plus, and we're no closer to anything. And then they're already saying, well, there's going to be recounts in Florida, there's going to be runoffs, and you're just like, oh my God, what's that going to look like? Are we looking into December? And then lawsuits after that? There's going to be lawsuits after that. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show. Twitter. Stan Lee's passed away, age 95. Created a lot of stuff, man. I mean, he created so much. I was going through all of those things, and you're just like, all right, well, see, man, you got Hulk, and you got Spider-Man, and he had his hands at Black Panther, and all of these. I mean, you just check. Like Marvel. Wow, that's insane, all of the stuff. Like, what a legacy to leave, right? That legacy's massive. Huge. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. ChadBenson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Deep states? No. Deep doo-doo? Yeah. The Chad Benson Show.
This is my gift.
Wow.
It is my curse.
Who are you?
Who am I? I'm Spider-Man.
R.I.P. You guys didn't hear Stan Lee, the man who created Spider-Man, and many others passed away today at 95 years young. He talked about his favorite character of all time, Shocker Shocker.
Maybe Spider-Man, because my publisher didn't want... When I told him the idea, he hated it. So we had a book we were going to kill. And when you're going to kill a book, nobody cares what you put in the last issue. You're killing it. So I put Spider-Man in it and put him on the cover. And the book sold like crazy.
Like crazy. Like hotcakes. So here it is. It sells like crazy. How excited was he?
My publisher came running into me a month later when we got the sales figures. And he said, Stan, you remember that character of yours, Spider-Man, that we both loved so much? Let's do a series of it. And that moment, I think, was the crowning moment for me.
Yeah, I would say so. But so many, Black Panther. I mean, God, you just go and look at all of these things that he has done. The Hulk. You just start, looking at them. Okay, he had his hand in this. He had his hand in this one. This one was just all his. And Marvel itself, from the Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, think about all the movies we've seen in the last umpteen years and how Fantastic Four. Oh, yeah, I've kind of heard of that. You name it. He's kind of had his hand in it and then some. And it's amazing. And now that, 95 years young, he passed away. What I was amazed, though? For all of the things that he has done, for all of the things he's created that have making hundreds of millions and billions of dollars on a yearly basis now, his net worth was only $50 million. And I was shocked about that. I was like, wow. That's because you would think $400 or $500 million, all of these things. But nope, only $50 million, which is still amazing. But when you look at all of the things that are out there right now that are being Hollywood is driven by this, and it is keeping them on the path of success, to only be worth that was an eye-opener to me. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us each and every single day at this time. When we get back to sort of normalcy, we like to drop it to you like it is hot. We call this our Urban Word of the Day.
It's time for the Urban Word of the Day, fam.
What? Right now?
Time to get a little more hip on the streets.
I can't understand a word you're saying.
Urban Word of the Day.
Many of you may see this around your office place or wherever you are as you're out and about. ILS, Imaginary Lat Syndrome. People who think that they are bigger and stronger and in better shape than they really are. Maybe they are in a medium when they should really be in a large or an extra large, but they want to show everybody how thin and fit they are, and they're really not. Oh, you know who you are out there. You do. Sometimes people think they're bigger than they are, and they get bigger shirts, and sometimes it's the exact opposite. ILS, Imaginary Lat Syndrome. Oh, it's not a good look, kids. That's your Urban Word of the day.
Thank you for saying that in dated urban slang so that I'll understand you. That there was the urban word of the day. We damn stretched your cranium.
I personally find that statement unsatisfactory, and it's very hurtful for all first responders that are putting their lives in the line to protect lives and property.
That right there is Fire Chief Darrell Osby, who, of course, was fighting the wildfires in California, upset with what Trump had to say and what he tweeted out, and he turned it into a political thing. And then, of course, you got the back and forth between the two, and there's just no winning here for something like this. Everybody needs to stand down and stop making politics over the fact that something's still going on, and people are texting in, well, Trump had a right to say that. It's not about right or wrong, or is it true or is it not true? Just enough. Just let it go. Let it go. Stop playing politics with things. At some point in time, fix something and then politic about it later. Goodness me. Speaking of politics, there's a company out there that's going to advocate on your behalf for real change, right? Real things like getting rid of the dream of the government-run healthcare system. Goodness me. Why would you want that? Right? How about this? Immigration reform. Goodness me. We need that. Who's going to help us with that? AMAC is. On top of that, Medicare's here. If you're over and you're looking around, you're like, man, I got all the stuff to fill out. I don't quite know what to do. AMAC has partnered with Senior Resource Network, and they're ready to help you, give you direct access to an agent that's going to help you, a dedicated agent. What are you waiting for? Join AMAC today. It's absolutely free. You get a year membership. It's on me. amac.us/Chad. That's amac.us/Chad. Politically, they're going to advocate on your behalf, and the benefits from retail, restaurant, and hotel discounts to so many other things you're going to absolutely love. And by the way, did I mention it's free? 1 year free. They don't even want your credit card. amac.us/Chad. amac.us/Chad. AMAC is better for you, better for America. At Chad Benson Shows your Twitter. ChadBenson. Are we headed to two Americas? That's a fair question to ask. Plus, Pete Davidson did something solid this weekend from Saturday Night Live. We'll talk about that, too. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
So last week, people were freaking out because Pete Davidson, who's on Saturday Night Live, did a thing where he was making fun of some of the candidates that were out there running in state elections and whatnot. And the person he focused in at one time was Dan Crenshaw, Republican running in Texas. Was then a candidate, now congressman-elect, and Dan Crenshaw lost his eye. And in the flippant way, Pete Davidson said he looks more like a hitman from a porno, and then said, I don't know what he did, he lost his eye in war or something like that, just kind of flippantly. And people, of course, did what they did, and everybody overacted. Dan Crenshaw last week, to his credit, solid stand-up thing, said it was stupid, it was asinine, but let's move on. There's no way, this is ridiculous. There's no reason to pile on to this guy. And so, Saturday Night Live, to its credit, and Pete Davidson, came out this weekend, and I think did something that we can all learn a little bit from.
I made a joke about Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw, and on behalf of the show and myself, I apologize. It was a poor choice of words. The man is a war hero, and he deserves all the respect in the world. And if any good came of this, maybe it was that for one day, the left and the right finally came together to agree on something. That I'm a
Now, if you don't know who Pete is, Pete's probably more famous for being engaged to Ariana Grande than anything else. And it was really interesting to watch. So he goes through this thing and makes fun of himself and apologizes. Then,
Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw, everyone, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for making a Republican look good.
I just wanted to say, for people that don't know, The reason you're wearing an eye patch right now is that you lost your eye to an IED in Afghanistan during your 3rd combat tour. And I'm sorry.
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate you saying that.
So we good?
We're good. Apology accepted.
Yeah. So apology accepted, right? No fighting, no screaming, no yelling. And what I liked for last week was, because I saw a lot of people on the right, he should be fired. Shut up. Shut up. Shouldn't be fired. He made a joke. Comics will make jokes sometimes and they fall flat. One of those things that you do is every once in a while you can say something completely stupid, but you're a jokester. That's what you do for a living. The living is there's an envelope, you push the envelope, and we'll see what happens. Sometimes it doesn't go well, right? I don't think Pete meant anything horrible by it. I don't. He tried to be funny, and that to me was, I bet if you asked him, it was probably a throwaway thing. He wasn't even thinking of it. He just kind of ad-libbed or whatever, and it didn't go right. And it was stupid and asinine. I get that. But the way that Crenshaw here, the congressman, played it, I thought was solid last week, saying, look, we don't need, this is just stuff we don't need talking about. I don't want to bring any more attention to it. And I just thought it was solid the way, because in this day and age, we just love to jump on things. Oh my God, you said something. You tweeted something. You did something. Heaven forbid you now have to pay the price because somewhere out there, there's somebody who's offended by your tweet that wasn't meant for them. And they are no way, shape, or involved in any of this, but it doesn't matter because they've taken offense and now they want to punish you. He went the exact opposite way.
There's a lot of lessons to learn here. Americans can forgive one another. We can remember what brings us together as a country and still see the good in each other. This is Veterans Day weekend, which means that it's a good time for every American to connect with a veteran. Maybe say thanks for your service, but I would actually encourage you to say something else. Tell a veteran, never forget. When you say never forget to a veteran, you are implying that as an American, you are in it with them.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. And again, remember Pete Davidson here. And remember never forget. And there's a reason for the never forget as well, as Dan Crenshaw explains here. So here's a guy who cracked a joke about him losing his eye and trying to be funny. It went a little south. It caused controversy and blah, 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 blah. And by the way, made Dan Crenshaw a household name for a lot of people across the country. They paid attention to this guy. But listen to what he has to say here, including about Pete Davidson's father.
Not separated by some imaginary barrier between civilians and veterans, but connected together as grateful fellow Americans. We'll never forget the sacrifices made by veterans past and present, and never forget those we lost on 9/11, heroes like Pete's father. So I'll just say, Pete, never forget.
Never forget.
I just thought it was well handled by both Saturday Night Live and by, Pete Davidson and by Dan Crenshaw there. And that's something we can learn because we need more of that in this country. We're at a point where we're very much a divided country in more ways than one. We're starting to work ourselves out where coastal communities are going to be mostly liberal, with very little room for anything else. The center of the country is going to be mostly conservative. There's a lot of things that are happening in this country. And I was talking to somebody, texting back and forth over the weekend, who were like, I don't know why poor people continue to vote Republican or continue to do this and continue that. And I was trying to explain to him, you're not understanding what a lot of this is about for people as Americans. Right. On this Veterans Day, as we celebrate this Veterans Day for a lot of people who are off today. And of course, yesterday we celebrated Veterans Day proper. But, it's about the liberty, the individual, what our Constitution stands for and the way that it's interpreted. It has nothing to do with the politics of the left or right and this, that, and the other. A lot of that other stuff seeps into it. But a lot of people forget about what that is and how they see the Constitution and how they see this country. It is, and it really, they miss the mark. Especially for a lot of people on the left, on why somebody would vote the way that they're voting. Why would you vote that way? You're voting against yourself in a lot of ways. You should be voting for this person because this person wants to help you. This person wants to do stuff for you. This person wants to give you things. This person wants to make sure that you're like, you don't understand. It's not about giving or this, and it's about the individual, the liberty. That person wants to give me something, but they want to take something away, something you can't put a price tag on. And that's something that, and they're like, I've never thought of it like that. Well, think about it like that. It has nothing to do with, you don't think the people on the right, a lot of people who are middle class, in the poverty area, who believe in individual liberty, you don't think they're pissed at the 1% at times? Absolutely they are. The difference is a lot of them, they want to get to the point where they don't think about it all the time. And they don't begrudge some of it. They hate the system as much as everybody else, and a lot of times they look at systems differently. Some people look at the system as a capitalistic system, how it's rigged against them, and it's all Wall Street and everybody else's fault. That's a lot of people on the left. People on the right look at it, it's like it's a governmental system that plays a game and that's rigged against them. And both of them are right. Both of them are right. When you have power, people are going to court you. So where do they go? If you're Wall Street, if you're big unions, if you're any big group, where do you go? You go to where the power is, whether it's a state capital, but most importantly, you're going to go to D.C. And you court the power. It's a game that we're all locked out of, and that frustrates a lot of people. We just look at it in a different way. One wants government to be the end-all, the be-all. The other one wants capitalism to be the end-all, the be-all. Both of them play the game. I've said it over and over, and I'll continue to say it. We want to get to the same place. We're just differing on how we want to get there. And that's the frustrating thing for a lot of people. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. The fires are raging and celebs are losing.
The fires burning in Malibu and Calabasas, where many celebrities live. Malibu, a place Miley Cyrus recently sang about. Now revealing on Twitter that her Malibu home is burned. Rock legend Neil Young also lost his Malibu home, and he took on President Trump in a tweet saying climate change is partly to blame for the devastation. Also losing their homes, actor Gerard Butler and actress Shannon Doherty, who said she's devastated to lose the house where she got married.
Yeah, that's awful. Again, Neil Young taking it on a tweet like Trump did this, but still, that's horrible. These people are losing their homes, and and I heard people on the other side of the aisle, on the right side of the aisle, say, I don't really care about celebrities losing their home. No, it's everybody. You understand that. It's rich or poor, it's black or white, it's gay or straight. This fire does not care. These fires are massive, and they do not care. And the wind and the elements against them are just, it's fueling that fire. They don't care. One of the guys I work with today, who's been out to California a few times, says to me, what is it about that? I said, well, it's the perfect storm. I said, you've got essentially kindling everywhere. And you've got, from certain areas, there is nothing but mountains, trees, and brush. There's nothing in between. There's nothing in between, and some of that stuff hasn't seen a human being in forever. It hasn't been cleared. It hasn't been, there hasn't been any controlled burns. There's none of that stuff. So you just have forever and ever of nothing. But when it starts to burn, it burns at such a pace that it is unstoppable. And then you get to the point where you are literally waiting for the elements to give you the go-ahead to take it on. And that's scary. Because if you look at the rest of this week and you look into next week through Thanksgiving into the weekend, the winds will die down hopefully by Wednesday. But outside of that, it's going to be dry with very little chance of precipitation. So you're looking at days of this fire continuing to grow. And the battle will be, how much can we avert any more deaths? Because if this thing's going to do whatever it's going to do, there's not a lot you're going to do to stop it. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. What if you talk like that all the time? Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. The accent, right? It's the accent. If you have a weird accent, we've talked about this before, because you talk like this, you can be the smartest human being on earth. But if you talk like this, nobody's going to care. Like, you can't get past that, right? If your doctor walked in and goes, I got bad news for you, going to have to operate on your brain. You've got to, and at the minute he said, you're just like, I've checked out because there's no way I'm letting you touch me. Right? And the guy that talks like this, hello there, it's all right, mate. You understand what I'm saying? Do you get it? You could be like, you can operate on my brain, and he could be a guy that drives a taxi and can't spell his name. But the accent, like, there should be a phobia, right? Like, we should have accent phobia, and like xenophobia. We have all of the Islamophobia, homophobia, transphobia, accentophobia. That's our new one. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Shows, your Twitter. Thanksgiving, just around the corner. Now, you're going to be sorting out your family gatherings, travel plans. Sometimes people are going to be missing out, and that's going to be a bummer. So why don't you do something? Send them something. How about a gorgeous bouquet of multicolored roses in the perfect, like they're going to be all designed perfectly, picked perfectly for you, and they're going to be coming to somebody and say, hey, sorry you couldn't show up, but I care for you. I love you. It's perfect. Or what if you're just showing up somewhere and you want to be cool, so you send it ahead of time, and then you show up, you're like, what? How awesome am I? 1-800-Flowers is ready for that. Here's what they're doing for my listeners. 24 for 24. 24 multicolored roses for $24. That's only $1 a rose. All right? That is amazing. I'm sending my mom some of these, even though because I'm not going to be able to make it this year. But, you know, it's the thought that counts. Really, it is. It is. So this is what I'm doing for her. What are you doing? What are you doing? 1-800-Flowers.com. Simple and easy. 24 for 24. 24 multicolored roses for $24. All you have to do is go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click on the radio icon. When you do, enter code Benson, BENSON. That's 1-800-Flowers.com, code Benson. And I'm telling you, it's going to be great. And there's going to be family members you're not going to be able to get to this year. It's a perfect thing for to do, to send them this. 24 for 24 multicolored roses for $24. Ends Friday. 1-800-Flowers.com, code Benson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
I'm going to steal their Christmas.
The Grinch stole the box office top spot in its debut, the animated take on the classic Christmas tale, earning $66 million. That knocked Bohemian Rhapsody into second, with just under $31 million in week 2 of its release.
What do you do with those people?
Bad news for the other new releases. The World War II horror pick Overlord bowed in third, but with only $10.1 million. The Girl on the Spider's Web fared worse, only $8 million there.
Yeah, but you know what? Those the Girl with the Spider Tattoo, they keep trying to redo these ones. They're Scandinavian. I think they're Danish, and they're pretty big over there. Might be German. I could be wrong. And they keep trying to redo these. I don't know. Overlord I liked, but I did go see Bohemian Rhapsody. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I will say, Rami Malek, who plays Freddie Mercury, is great. All of the guys, like, eerily look like each person in the band, which is like the guy who plays Brian May and the guy who plays, Deacon is just amazing. Here's my only issue I had with it, and it was one that we talked about briefly, was I felt like everything that went wrong was all about Freddie. Now, I think they really praised him for who he was, but I think it was like they blamed him for everything. These guys, I mean, like, Producer Phil, don't you just feel like they were just, it was a job and that they had their wives and their kids and they're going home and they've never done anything wrong? And I just stepped back and I thought, well, you're rock stars, for God's sakes. You're in Queen.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, you're in Queen. Oh, Freddie, I can't stay for your crazy party because I've got wives and kids and the whole 9 yards and I don't want to enjoy any of this and you're outrageous. Like and it was all kind of blamed on him. In saying that, though, it was amazing. And the way that they did. Now, you didn't like it, Phil. You said you didn't like the Wembley part too much, the fans. But you didn't like the fans. You weren't really a fan of the fans.
Oh, it was funny because nobody in that stadium, they were all too old to be at Live Aid.
Yeah. That's kind of, it was interesting, but it was just amazing. And the way they did everything, I thought was incredible. And I think Rami Malek will get a nod for playing Freddie Mercury. And we'll see if there's going to be another one, because the rumor is they're going to do more of a Freddie-based one coming up sooner rather than later. Strike while the iron's hot. Would you like to hear the worst ad in the history of ads? How about a Trumpy Bear?
I am the Storm, the great American Grizzly. Introducing the original Trumpy Bear.
I'm a former Marine, and I'm proud to have Trumpy Bear ride by my side.
Everyone knows Trumpy Bear loves to go to the golf course.
When I ride with Trumpy Bear, he makes my golf game great again. Thank you, Trumpy Bear.
When America is great, business is great. When business is great, I'm great.
I love you, Trumpy Bear.
I am an Army veteran. I am proud to own the Trumpy Bear, and I will always be proud to be an American.
I was like, there's no way that is real. Yes, but you can go to gettrumpybear.com, and for $19.95, 2 easy payments, kids. You too can have a Trumpy Bear. It's just, oh my God. I was like, that cannot be real. There's no way that could be real. Who in God's, now they've got to be gag gifts. They're hilarious, but still, there are going to be people out there who take it seriously. I want a Trumpy Bear. Trumpy Bear. Used to be just a stuffed bear, right? And then Teddy got it, right? Teddy Roosevelt, he got a bear, called it Teddy. So I got the teddy bear. Something like that. Could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's where we're going to go with that one. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Somebody else has joined in the accenophobia. So, because we said earlier, if you talk like this, people don't want anything to do with you. They're going to think you're an idiot and a moron no matter how smart you are. You could have graduated magna cum laude from MIT, super duper, Rhodes Scholar, and people are still going to think you're an idiot because they've got some sort of phobia against this accent. I don't. I'll tell you that right now. Listen to Chad. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Well, the very first thing, obviously, is to protect the Mueller investigation. President's dismissal of Attorney General Sessions and his appointment of Whitaker, who's a complete political lackey, is a real threat to the integrity of that investigation. That investigation is of utmost importance in making sure that we adhere to the rule of law and that the administration is held accountable. And we will certainly hold hearings on that. And our very first witness after January 3rd, we will subpoena we will summon, if necessary, subpoena Mr. Whitaker.
Lackey! That right there is Jerry Nadler from New York. So here's what's going to happen January 3rd. Over the weekend, a lot of people are debating. They can't wait. This is it. The impeachment's going to happen. You know, we're on our way. Impeachment's coming soon. And it's going to happen. Al Green, no, not the singer. Congressman, this is what they've always dreamed of. But cooler, calmer heads are going to prevail because they know a few things. The first thing they know is if this becomes just 2 years of not even trying to pretend to pass bills that you know will or won't be pushed all the way through, get down to the Senate and bounce back and at least make an effort. But it becomes 2 years of all we're going to do is subpoena, try to impeach, and not try to do a damn thing. And I think there's 100 bills sitting right now in the Senate. So if I'm just getting everything done as fast as possible. Just do a bunch of stuff. But if this is all it becomes is 2 years of this, they know come 2020, whoop, there's going to be a flip. Now, I still think they'll probably win the Senate. But depending on how ugly this thing could get, that could play a lot into it. Trump's going to push back. The Mueller investigation everybody's worried about. And that's why a lot of people think this Whitaker guy is here.
Well, the questions we will ask him will be about his expressed hostility to the investigation, how he can possibly supervise it when he's come out and said that the investigation is invalid, that contrary to the findings of every intelligence agency, there was no Russian interference in our election. He has expressed ridiculous legal opinions that go against the foundations of American law. He's totally unqualified, and his only qualification seems to be that the president wants him to be the hatchet man to destroy the Mueller investigation.
There's some truth there. I don't know about the unqualified thing, but they're already looking into this guy. They're ready to destroy this guy at all costs. This is what politics is. This is what life has become. So life has become this. I don't like your politics. I don't like something you've done. So I will do everything in my power to destroy everything about you in hopes that you'll submit and disappear. And if you never work again, and if you just go off and crawl into a hole, even better. And I don't like that. I think it's an ugly way to conduct business. I don't think the guy's a moron. And I love how automatically we get into a position where this person is immoral and that he's going to go against anything he believes and that he is just strictly there for the president. He may be, right? I'm not saying he's not, but we automatically go there. And I do agree with one thing with the president, which lately he's just driving me crazy every day. But I agree with one thing, which is anybody I put in that position that's not somebody they agree with and it is handpicked that is going to cuff me, it's going to be somebody they're going to go up against. I think the investigations, I think it could wrap up very soon. I really, really do. Do I think the investigation is going to come to an end? No. Do I think this guy may go, hey, look, here, this is it. Stick with it. I mean, today you got Jerome Corsi coming out who said, hey, Roger Stone said he's going to be indicted any day soon. It's going to happen. You had a Cohen in D.C. over the weekend. I think they're putting together the final touches on something. And somebody, I was talking to a bigwig today who said, what do you think's going to happen? I said, I think there's no there when it comes to Trump. But, he says, what about his kid? He goes, I think his kid's done something. I said, that's a possibility. He said, do you think what do you think would happen? I said, I think he'd step away for his kid. Absolutely, I would. I think the dude would step away in a heartbeat for his kid. If that's it. But we'll find out sooner rather than later. Do I think he's going to choke off the money? No. Do I think he may put on a shot clock, if you will, for this? I think that's a possibility.
I think he was appropriately appointed legally. I don't think he has to recuse himself. I am confident the Mueller investigation will be allowed to come to a good, solid conclusion, that there will be no political influence put on Mr. Mueller by Mr. Whitaker to do anything other than Mr. Mueller's job. I'm confident Mr. Mueller will be allowed to do his job without interference.
Yeah. I think that's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be anything other than that. So, is there really a need for recusal? Everybody seems to think there is. And, there's a lot of stuff that can get done. And this is where the Democrats have to tiptoe. But, Chad, they just want all this stuff. I get that. But we're a fickle country, as you can tell. We are very, very fickle. So we may go, all right, we're giving you some power now, right? We're giving you the power of the purse. We're giving you the power of investigation. We're giving you all of these things, but we want you to do something. Along the way, if you want to look for his tax records, all right, people kind of expect those kind of things. But if your whole goal is to just skip everything and to solely try to bring down Trump and his presidency without anything else, that's not good. And we, being the fickle bunch that we are, may fickly go elsewhere.
The president has 2 years left in his term. He spent almost his entire campaign talking about our infrastructure. We have to sit down. He says he claims he wants to work with us. We need to sit down and address the issue of infrastructure. We've got bridges and roads that need to be repaired, and we got to do that. And we can do that.
Yeah, and I think they can. And I think there's a few things they can really look at. I think DACA is one of them. I think infrastructure. And I think at some point in time, you're going to have to start tackling the debt sooner rather than later. Plus, and I think this is vitally important, I think justice reform, because I think both sides want it. You could get done 3 or 4 things, and you could still infight all you want, right? Because the greatest fundraiser in the Democratic Party history is Donald Trump. And so you don't really want to blow him out of the water. Plus, if you look to be too partisan, you will pay the ultimate price at the ballot box, especially if things slow down and they start to go, because if that starts to happen, the market really tanks. Today it was down about 600 points. The reason, a lot of tech news coming out, stuff that wasn't great. But I think if it starts to point to the fact that the only reason things slowed down and then it got ugly and it was unsustainable and the climate of Washington was so nasty and it really played in the economy, you do understand that at some point in time that's going to come back and bite you in the ass, because people are going to start putting one and one together and go, everything seemed to be good until this day. What happened on this day? Well, they came in. Oh, yeah. That might happen. So maybe we should avoid that.
California's most destructive fire ever. Camp Fire scorching more than 100,000 acres, destroying more than 6,700 homes and buildings. Sean Field is one of 27,000 people desperate to see what's left.
Do you have any idea if your home's still standing?
No.
Not at all.
I just asked the PG&E guy if I could pay him to take a picture.
Community pulling together as volunteers hand out supplies to residents impacted by the fires.
Yeah, ugly, ugly, ugly. And it is only going to get worse. For those people who have no idea, don't understand the Southwest on how just ferocious these things are, and they're running rampant. There are plenty of people still missing. They estimate 240 people are unaccounted for. You've already got 30-plus deaths. I think the number's going to rise, and I wouldn't be surprised if that 200 number rises as well, because some people might have been living alone. People didn't know. There was some very rural areas out there. I was talking earlier today to a show out in Sacramento, and several of my listeners were sending me pictures of Paradise, which is a place in Northern California where there is nothing left, including their homes and businesses. They're like, hey, this is where I used to have a house and a business last week, and there is nothing left whatsoever.
In Paradise, officials discovered 6 more bodies. The devastation just seems to be getting worse by each day. Thousands of people have lost everything now, including first responders. Despite these difficult circumstances, this community is resilient, but with more than 200 people still missing, there's fear that that death toll could rise even higher.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's horrible that we're looking at this again, and the politics played into it because Trump blamed bad forestry and the environmentalists for not going and burning and cleaning things out. And then, of course, they came back and said, no, it's all climate change. I don't care whose fault it is, because I don't think it's anybody's fault. I think this is just a horrible situation. How about we take care of it rather than blame each other? Because that's not getting us anywhere. That's not getting anybody anywhere. Period. Doesn't move us at all. Doesn't move the ball forward. And it is just beginning, because you've got another probably 8 to 10 days, if not a little longer, of really dry weather with no chance of precipitation in the forecast for these next week and a half or so. On top of that, you still may have another 24-plus hours of the Santa Anas, the devil winds. And with the way that this fire is moving, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And you're at the mercy of the elements. And that's the scary thing. But we're sitting around playing grab ass. We're going, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. Shut up. How about, I don't care whose fault it is. How about we sort it out? How about we act like big boys and girls and we just sort it out? How about those apples? 323-538-2423 is the text line. So if you call that line, you go, all right, call it the line and nobody answered. It's because it's a text line. And we'll send you back a snarky remark, because we're very snarky. People get snarky with me all the time. I'll get snarky back at you. Like somebody just texted in and said, it's your and you are. Or I'm like, dude, I'm doing a radio show and I'm filming stuff and I'm doing this. So slow your roll. Sometimes the phone will do what the phone does. All right. So slow down. Chad, you're very energetic and angry. No, I'm not. I'm having fun. Hey, speaking of fun, I'm going to pig out tonight. So I'm eating a lot better. And one of the things I've done is I've made a choice to go to healthier things. And grass-fed, grass-finished beef, organic free-range chickens, heritage pork, these are the things I've moved to. And I'm losing weight, and I'm feeling better, and I'm eating better than I've ever eaten. And one of the things is Butcher Box. I mean, it's amazing. Butcher Box is amazing. What is Butcher Box, Chad? Well, I'm glad you asked, Scottish guy. Butcher Box is all of those things I talked about, the grass-fed beef, all that stuff, and it comes to your door, and you open it up, and you're like, oh, my God, it's just like Noah's Ark. Remember the Ark of the Covenant? It's like, oh, but you don't melt your face. Instead, your face with the smile and the food. It's delicious. It's incredible. Premium, high-quality meats. You will not find a better deal on this anywhere. Less than $6 a meal, and the cuts are amazing. Remember, it comes to you with free shipping. So I want you to do. Try it for yourself, and if you join now, with every subscription, you're going to get a free thing of bacon every time it shows up at your house. You have to order extra bacon. It's coming to your house, and you're going to get $20 off right now. Go to butcherbox.com/Chad. That's butcherbox.com/Chad. Butcherbox.com/Chad. You're going to love it. Love it. At Chad Benson Show, Twitter, ChadBenson. Kirsten Sinema in Arizona is flipping. It's becoming more purplish. The new America. Chad Benson Show.
Welcome to the alt-middle, where solutions live and ignorance dies. The Chad Benson Show.
About Arizona, where Kirsten Sinema looks like she is expanding her lead and may very well soon be declared the winner in that state. This is a huge flip if it happens for the Democrats.
Yeah, it's a huge flip. I mean, you can see this lead is now heading towards 1.5 points ever since election night. Kirsten Sinema's lead has started. In fact, she was behind, and then she took the lead, and it just keeps rising and rising and rising as more ballots come in. Remember, a lot of mail-in ballots in that state. And yeah, you mentioned it. It's a huge deal because this is a state that hasn't elected a Democratic senator since 1988.
Yeah. So Arizona's going to flip. She's up by, I think the latest is 38,000. But again, they still got a lot of ballots to count. I don't think she's going to be defeated. She's going to win. I still think McSally's going to end up being because I think John Kyle, who took over for the late John McCain, I think he may step down at the new year, and then Governor Ducey will say, hey, you want to be this? So potentially they could both be there. And then the other side of things is how poorly this has played itself out in the way that they've done this. The Arizona and Florida have failed. And the way that they've mailed stuff in and it's early voting. And somebody said, well, what can we do? First of all, it's an antiquated system. How about we sequester people? We have X amount of people that know that you're going to be sequestered for 3+ days. And that's it. 3 days, you're going to be sequestered for 4 days so we can get these counts on the way and get them up and running so we're not waiting days and 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 days to figure out what the hell's going on. It's embarrassing. It really is. So you've got what's going on with Sinema and McSally in Arizona, and then the other side of things, we've got the craziness out in Florida where I said they're going to lawyer up, and they lawyered up before anything happened. And the lawyers and Gillum came out before anybody even said, we predict that Gillum is going to be the loser in Florida. He's come out and he said, congratulations, I called, blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, he's now saying, well, hold on a second. No.
Gillum had conceded to DeSantis on election night, but with results narrowing, a reversal.
I am replacing my words of concession with an uncompromised and unapologetic call that we count every single vote.
Meanwhile, anger from those on both sides of the political divide pouring out onto the streets with accusations of voter fraud, voter suppression, and abuse of power.
Yeah, how about accusations of incompetence? I don't hear that. We should march on that. More often than not, when you hear things like this, very rarely is there fraud, right? Like both sides, who's ever losing, have you ever noticed the other side's cheating? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's so ridiculous. Here's my big, we never march on stupidity. We should march on stupidity. We should march on incompetence. Arizona, we're now moving into the 7th day. And while it's getting closer, we want to count them all. There's better ways. It's an antiquated, broken system. Nobody can figure out a better way. On the other side of it, Florida, here you are. You're always a mess. This isn't the first time. This isn't like, well, Florida's been so good up in this point. You've been a mess since, I don't know, forever. So how about we start marching on incompetence and we go from there? We'll start there and then we'll move elsewhere. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Happy Veterans Day. Joining us next, Master Chief James Parlier. He was part of the USS Cole. He's going to talk about being a veteran. He's going to talk about that day and where we're headed as a nation and where we're headed in our military. He joins us straight ahead. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
independent in thoughts, and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
It is Veterans Day, and all day we'll be talking about it. And if you have a chance to thank a veteran, do it. Absolutely. 110%. You should do it always, but today, really, you should step out there. Yesterday being Veterans Day, but a lot of people are celebrating it today. Joining us now is Commander Master Chief from the USS Cole, James Parlier. I appreciate you coming on today, Master Chief. And first and foremost, being a veteran, what's that mean to you?
For me and my fellow vets, it means a lot. It means we were honored to serve our country. To write a blank check, basically, in serving, knowing that we would possibly go in harm's way and defend the freedoms that we live today. And that in itself means a whole lot, especially when you're doing it even for your own family.
Yeah. I mean, my uncle served in Vietnam. He passed away several years ago, but it affected his life. And, in this day and age, I watched President Bush last night talk about the fact that here's a nation and what we do, our veterans, when you think about it, you guys volunteer to put yourselves in harm's way. And I don't think people really understand what that means to a lot of people just don't understand what that means, Master Chief.
Yeah, it's hard to describe unless you've been in the shoes of a vet. Me personally, I was raised by a father that is a Korean War and Vietnam veteran, and that was my inspiration to join the military and all-volunteer service. And I'm proud of that, as well as proud of being able to serve with the people I've served with and learn things that helped me in life to be where I am today.
So as we're talking to Commander Master Chief, formerly of the USS Cole, James Parlier here, and you were on the Cole on that fateful day, and that's one of those things when we before 9/11, we seemed to be somewhat at peace. There were certain areas of the globe that we had been in and out of, but it seemed to be quiet and peaceful. And then on that fateful day, take us through that day if you could, real quick.
Yes, we had just did a successful training of the crew, transition across the Atlantic and stopped at some ports in the Mediterranean, and then transitioned through the Red Sea and Suez canals to refuel in Yemen, Aden, Yemen in 12 October 2000. We were taking on about 250,000 gallons of fuel, and little did we know that Al-Qaeda had planned what we know today as a boats operation. We entered the harbor. There was a sense of urgency in some ways, just symptoms of something wasn't right, but you couldn't really put your finger on it. Yet there was no threat level that was given to us or any indications that there would be a threat there awaiting us as it was that day. And once we got to refueling and taking on fuel, and the garbage barge boats started coming alongside to take on garbage, which normally happens when you hit an overseas port to unload your garbage. Little do we know there would be a pleasure craft with basically what we call now an IED in a boat that had enough explosive in it to put a 40-foot wide by 60-foot high hole in the side of the ship, enough to sink her. Firstly, I was back aft about 200 feet from the blast area, and it was an incredible amount of energy and lifted a 8,500-ton ship off its port side. We were lucky the ship didn't catch on fire. The crew responded excellently, and all the training paid off, not only in saving a billion-dollar warship, but also saving lives and saving our crew members. But unfortunately, during that blast, we lost 17 that day, 17 sailors. But the crew did an incredible job of treating fellow shipmates and getting them off the ship in an hour and a half with what we had, because basically we had no potable water, no supplies. The ship was pretty much dead in the water. We had no engines, and only one generator was running.
When that took place, did you foresee, first of all, what could be coming next, obviously, but then after everything was said and done and you guys had taken care of the situation, could you foresee, Al-Qaeda? Very few people had ever heard of Al-Qaeda. What was coming 11 months almost to the day, and then where we were headed from that day forward?
Not at all. As you know, intel was a real issue in those days. It failed us miserably. It would have been nice to know there was 60 attacks in Yemen alone by all kinds of different organizations. But as you said, we felt like we were the stepping stone to 9/11. That it emboldened our enemy, Al-Qaeda, which actually used, even though they didn't sink her and we saved her, still used the film clips or advertisements. They made their own film clips because the guy that was supposed to film it actually fell asleep, never got the film done of our attack, but still celebrated and used that as a recruiting tool.
God, that's just insane when you think about it. Talking to a man who, Commander Master Chief James Parlier, who is on this Veterans Day. We talk about that. And we look out there, and you talked about all the things that went on that day and the crew coming together. And, I think what we forget is that we just think that you're just a number. And many of us have friends and family who are serving right now, that you're just a number. But it's bigger than that when you're in a position, not only like that, but when you serve on a day-to-day basis. Every little thing is part of a bigger picture, and I don't think people understand that.
Absolutely. Anyone from the cook that cooks in the galley to the boatswain's mate that takes care of the ship, and to the navigator. You're right. Everybody's got a key role on board a ship like that, and sometimes you think your job is little and doesn't mean a lot, but in perspective, it does. Especially when you have to learn the basics as a sailor, in this case, of how your ship runs and how to save it. In the case that they dealt with that day, our crew did, and the heroism that I saw that day with the crew, it was incredible.
Where do you see our military going in the future? I think this is something because it's different now. I mean, everybody seems to go to college. That used to be one of the things where people would go to the military and then take their GI Bill and go to college. But as we move forward in this world, everybody seems to be going to college now, taking out massive loans and heading to college. Where do you see our military heading in the future as far as recruitment or is that still going to be something that we see a lot of people, signing up for?
I would hope, obviously you still can't make somebody join, but I would hope, one of the key things for me was I was proud of my country or our country. And that was a big reason I joined as well, is the fact that, the nicety of the privilege, I should say, of getting three square meals a day, roof over your head, a regular paycheck. I mean, that was, something that also helped for me personally to make that decision. I'm sure others. The education's a benefit, but to me, I think it's a privilege to be able to have the American people pay for that privilege. But when the day's done, it's all about, your basic skill sets you learn and being a military member, whatever the service that is, and being able to protect your country. Because if it wasn't for the veterans, obviously, and we talk about this all the time, again, we wouldn't live the freedoms we do and be able to enjoy all those things that are in our Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Yeah. Do you think that people don't understand what the sacrifice is for our freedoms? Because I think a lot of times all of us here as human beings take massively for granted what we have with our Constitution, but the Constitution's only there because we're able to be protected. And I don't think people understand that. And I think that we're all guilty of it at some point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. The Constitution is words, but we as Americans, we put those words in actions. Whether we're the regular American patriot or civilian every day working out here and doing what our part for our country, to the veteran themselves and what they do and keeping the Constitution enforced. That is so important, putting those words into action.
Any words you want to say to all the veterans out there?
Yeah, I absolutely have to say I'm proud to serve with them. I actually have had the privilege to still go on the road and see our veterans today train and do what they do. And what I have to say is that the American people need to be really proud with all the challenges that we deal with today in this world and the dangers. And I feel safe here in North Carolina knowing what they're doing out there. And I speak from, again, experience and what I've seen.
Commander Master Chief James Parlier, we appreciate you coming on today. Thanks so much for your service, and it was great talking to you.
Yes, sir, and as you as well. And you have a great Veterans Day, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter, ChadBenson. You can text the program 323-538-2423. And it is the celebration day of Veterans Day. A lot of parades going on around the country, and it's just little things. My uncle served in Vietnam, and it was he was a great guy. He had a lot of issues. He came back, and he was, my dad said he never was the same, and he wasn't. And it took a lot out of him, and it was sad to see the way that he ended up going, but he did serve our country, and a lot of people out there have struggled. And you see this with PTSD and all of these things. And I think we need to think about our veterans, not just on this day, but yearly, on what they're going through and how they're struggling. And I think a lot of times while we're celebrating certain things, we forget the other 364 days, what their life is like, especially for a lot of our veterans who've come out of a situation where they've been in combat, and it's tough to get back to living a regular life. We've talked to numerous veterans, like, how do you go about fighting Al-Qaeda one day in Afghanistan or ISIS in Iraq, and then 2 weeks later you're at Disney World with your kids? That is a weird thing. And to be able to decompartmentalize those kind of things, it's tough. And I think we need to think about everything, not just the service, but afterwards too, that we really need to pay attention to. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Running with scissors sounds great compared to this.
Say
As word spread through northeast France that there was an armistice ending the war, some troops kept fighting, like Private Henry Gunther from Baltimore.
They didn't want to actually let go of it, and if they had let go of it sooner, I think that more people, including him, may have been alive.
Carol Aikman is Gunther's great niece. He was shot and killed by a German soldier at 10:59 in the morning on November 11th, 1918, 1 minute before the armistice took effect.
He kind of volunteered to do whatever he could to try to redeem himself, if you will.
Gunther had been demoted after he criticized conditions in his camp, but had his rank of sergeant restored posthumously.
How about that, huh? Would you, the first or the last? Crazy. The first or the last of official. Because you got to think about it. Like, my uncle's a perfect example of, he died after Vietnam, years later. Agent Orange, all of this stuff. He had chronic leukemia, all of these things. We don't have cancer. It was just, but to know that you're officially on the record of the fighting was going on and you were the last. So there was a first and there was a last. And yesterday, being the 100-year anniversary of the end of World War I, the greatest war, Peter Jackson has a new documentary coming out where they capture all of this stuff. And it's incredible. It really is. And to look back, at in the trenches and the Ardennes and all, to look back at the French and the way that they fought, they lost 1 million people. We make fun of the French, rightly so. But look at that. They lost 1 million people. 1 million men died. And I think it was for a lot of people, especially Americans, it was very romanticized. The First World War, but the trenches and so many of the people, just like a lot of people in battle in the Civil War, they didn't die from like being shot and dying right there on the battlefield. A lot of them died from the elements, died years later, died, they got shot, and what would be survivable today as no big deal ended up taking their lives. And it was an awful, horrible way. You're watching the World War I, and Van Richthofen, the Red Baron, and you realize how they used to fight back then, and even dropping bombs, they were doing it by hand. And that's also where they tested a lot, and I do mean a lot, of chemical weapons. And they didn't. That was bad. That was a new goo. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. So, a little girl, 10 years old, guy rolls up in his car and says, "Hey, better get in the car.
My daughter called me in tears, crying, upset. She told me that some guy tried to take her.
The girl's mother says she was walking with a friend near a local park when a man driving a white SUV pulled up beside them.
He told her that her brother had been in a serious accident and that she needed to come with him.
Instead, she asked for a code word, and that's when the driver took off. It's a plan the girl's family came up with only recently.
Yeah, how cool is that? And the dude freaked and he bounced because he knew, uh-oh. Yeah, that was just, that's the code word. Little things like that. And it's a big thing when we hear stuff like this because it doesn't happen too often. Very rarely do human beings get snatched by other human beings who don't know them, especially kids. It's usually family members. Mother, father, custody dispute, uncle, aunt, something like that happens, or somebody they know directly. But they had a code word, and the dude panicked and ran, and now there's somebody else out there. So it's just a quick little thing, a code word with your kids. What do you say? What is that thing you would say where you could get somebody to go, okay. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at us. What a day, right? What a day. So we've got an end of a Senate race now with Kyrsten Sinema being declared victor in Arizona, beating out Martha McSally in a state that Trump carried handily. You've got the first female senator, and it is a congresswoman, who's now becoming a senator, who fought against the war, the pink tutu, all of these things. They went after her with McSally and her camp, and she kind of ran as just a straightforward, non-attacking ads. And she kept it going, and we'll see. But this is the country now, as in certain areas that are red, it's starting to turn purple. And how are people going to take that? And I think that there's going to be a lot of questions that need to be asked by the Republicans. And what do they do? I know what they should do, but they don't listen to me. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens going forward. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. All right, sleeping is important. Trust me, I know. This weekend, I got some of the best night's sleep I've ever gotten in my entire life, and it was simple. I had my Casper mattress. My body doesn't hurt. After traveling for the last several weeks, being able to be home for 3 straight days and rest and relax, it is amazing to see the way that this has gone down. It is incredible, and I love it. It is so, my legs don't hurt, my back, and that is a huge thing. My back doesn't hurt anymore. It's Casper. That's it. Casper, Casper, Casper. What are you doing? Try it now, 100 nights in your own home, 35,000 5-star reviews across Casper, Google, Amazon, and you can try it for 100 nights free in your own home. And this is what I mean. So you get it, it's there, you try it. If you don't like it, they're going to refund all your money. Boom. How simple is that? Doesn't get any easier than that. Right? It's risk-free. Try it in your own home. Go to Casper.com. Use code CHAD. You're going to save $50 right there on the purchase of selected mattresses. That's Casper.com. Code CHAD. Saves you $50. Casper.com. Terms and conditions apply. At Chad Benson Shows your Twitter. CHADBENSON. Love hearing from you guys across the country. Feel free to text me. Check out the podcast. You can go to thechadshow.com. Grab your podcast right there. Check out Chad Benson Show TV on the YouTube as well. And, of course, Facebook. Like us. There it is, The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's The Chad Benson Show.
California's most destructive fire ever. Camp Fire scorching more than 100,000 acres, destroying more than 6,700 homes and buildings. Sean Field is one of 27,000 people desperate to see what's left.
Do you have any idea if your home's still standing?
No.
Not at all.
I just asked the PG&E guy if I could pay him to take a picture.
Community pulling together as volunteers hand out supplies to residents impacted by the fires.
Yeah, it is an absolute nightmare. California it's a battle. I mean, this is huge, and as I've talked about before, we've discussed how big these things are. I don't think people really understand that from other parts of the country. Maybe they'll have a fire here or there, and just like we don't understand tornadoes in certain parts of the country, if you're from, from the West Coast or if you're from the East Coast, you don't, understand certain things. But these are massive. They are beyond huge, and it is getting uglier and uglier. And it's not just an area. You've got Northern California with the Camp Fire. 300,000 people have been evacuated statewide. You've got, God knows what's over 120,000 now acres just up there alone. You've got the Woolsey fire. You've got several fires across the state that are devastating, and they're pulling away from one another certain areas. Because where something may come through, then it's okay. There it is. It's come through, whether it's a tornado or this, that, and the other. Then everybody together can go and try to do the best they can to fight. Where this thing, it's popping up, and we got one over here. No, wait, it's over here now. We got one over here, and it's growing. And you've got the weather, which is not being a helper here, because you've got Santa Ana winds. For those of you who don't know what Santa Anas are, they call them the devil winds, and they come when it's hot. Normally it's September, October, but here it is we're heading towards mid-November, and this is still going on, and it is ferocious.
In the past year, almost every large fire has broken records. The most acreage burned, the most homes lost, the most people killed. CAL FIRE Battalion Chief Lucas Spellman says you can debate the cause, but it's now the new normal in California.
It's really a new age of firefighting now.
And CAL FIRE says, frankly, it doesn't know what it can do to change how it attacks flames to adapt to the changing fire behavior.
Yeah. And it's like that. I mean, you have no idea. It goes from one place to another like that, and it burns so fast. So with all of this going on, what do you have? You have politics, right? Because you just can't have a situation where we go, oh my God, one of our states is in trouble. We need to do what we're supposed to do. No, you've got to have politics. And you've got a president who's not a huge fan of California politics. And you've got people who are running California politics who can't stand Trump. So who was going to fire the first one? Trump.
In addition to that blaze, local authorities now finding themselves in a political spat with President Trump, who tweeted this morning, with proper forest management, we can stop the devastation constantly going on in California. The president of the California Professional Firefighters Association responding to President Trump with this. The president's message is ill-informed, ill-timed, and demeaning to those who are suffering, as well as the men and women on the front lines.
Absolutely asinine thing to say when you've got 230 plus people missing. You've got numerous deaths already from this. Statewide, over 300,000 people have been evacuated. You've got little towns like Paradise, which don't even exist anymore. They've been wiped off the map. And while he may be right, because we've talked about it on numerous occasions in California, the way that they do things, just look at this train. We can't even get the train done because the environmentalists don't want it to be coming through certain areas. So they've said on over 100 occasions, there are just certain things they don't want to do, and they don't want to touch the forest, whether it's the water, this, that, and the other that they've got up there. So, yeah, that may be true, but you don't need to fire this off, right? And then the other side of things, you got Governor Brown who comes out, and he's got to take on Trump head on, and I don't think either of them need to be doing it at this point in time.
Forest management is one element. It's only one. And we have to take care of the whole range of threats and conditions and actions that are part of our living with fire threats.
Yeah, it is just absolutely just doesn't need to have happened. Somebody just texted me from Paradise and with pictures of what their house and everything used to look like, and God bless you, it is absolutely awful. There's nothing left. I mean, these pictures, there's nothing left. You don't even know there was anything there. It's just remnants of something. We don't need to be fighting. You don't. You need to be figuring out, okay, how is the best way that we attack this, right? Trump doesn't need to make some sort of half-assed attempt to blame climate change, people who just treat it like a religion as this is their fault. And on the other side of things, we don't need Jerry Brown coming out and say it's all kind of because of climate change.
Managing all the forests in every way we can does not stop climate change.
No. But I have news for you. We had lots of fires before, and we'll have fires again. And one thing right now is we don't need the political fighting, but that's what we've got. Before the last bullet was fired the other day in Thousand Oaks, guess what we had? We had politicking after politicking, and it was awful. Now what do we have? We got more politicking and more politicking when people are suffering and nobody's paying the damn attention because it's all about their politics. Right? It's all about their politics. Well, we better figure this out. It's climate change. We better reduce everything, make sure everybody drives in electric cars, or maybe we'll just go back to horses, but we can't have that. So we'll just make everybody walk everywhere. And Trump's like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Humans aren't a part, blah, 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 blah. California sucks, horrible, blah, 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 blah. It's a bunch of crap. It gets us nowhere. Zero, zilch, nada, period, case closed. You spill the milk. Rather than pick it up, both of them argue over what's the best way to pick up the damn milk. What's the best way to clean it up? All the while the milk sits there and nothing gets done. Welcome to modern politics. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Speaking of modern politics, for those of you who thought the election was over last Tuesday, you would be wrong. The battles are still going on. Arizona, still not sorted out. And then you've got the curious case of the continual useless things that happen time in and time out when it comes to Florida, and the lawsuits are battling it out, and it's not going to stop anything at all.
These are mail-in ballots. Now, under the current law, they have to be received no later than 7 p.m. on election night. In their suit, Democrats say even if they're mailed on time, those ballots could be held up by the Postal Service and, through no fault of the people who cast them, disqualified because they don't make it to their destination in time.
Wouldn't you think, right? Like, because everybody watched you in 2000 and you screwed up. Every time there's an election, you continue to screw up over and over and over and over and over again. You would think at some point in time that you would get it right, but it doesn't feel like it's getting done the right way. And now what do you have? You've got lawsuit after lawsuit. So where election night finished on Tuesday at midnight, as far as that day is done and we're moving on to something new, it's now time to start, hunkering down for 2020. You still have massive amounts of votes not counted in Arizona, Florida. You've got lawsuits in Georgia. And how many in California aren't counted and may not be counted right now because of all of this stuff? Not that I think it's going to make a huge difference in some stuff, but still, some of that's just antiquated, and some of it is because of nature and what's going on there. And then in Florida, you look out there and you're like, well, wait a minute here. You got stuff that seems to be happening in a very bizarre way where votes are just showing up, and how are they showing up and why are they showing up? And then you had Gillum who already said, yeah, you know what? I concede. Now he's coming back and saying, yeah, I'm not going to concede right now. So I'm going to rescind my, I'm just like, sweet Jesus. How do we get here? How do we get here? How do we get to this point where you guys have failed so poorly? How is it that we're at this point where this is such a massive joke and you didn't even drop the ball. You didn't even try to catch the balls the way I feel. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Love hearing from you. It is crazy out there. It is. You step back and I'm like, Arizona is turning purple, and I know the Republicans are having a tough time with that, and that's just changing demographics. That's the way that's going to be. I've said it. It's changing. It's purple. It's always been a purplish state, Florida. The battle has always been there, but their failures, both of them, their failures to do things where you're literally looking at hundreds of thousands of ballots not counted, and we're days past, we're heading into a week plus, and we're no closer to anything. And then they're already saying, well, there's going to be recounts in Florida. There's going to be runoffs. And you're just like, oh, my God, what's that going to look like? Are we looking into December? And then lawsuits after that? There's going to be lawsuits after that. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show. Twitter. Stan Lee's passed away, age 95. Created a lot of stuff, man. I mean, he created so much. I was going through all of those things, and you're just like, all right, we'll see. Man, you got Hulk, and you got Spider-Man, And he had his hands at Black Panther and all of these. I mean, you just check, like Marvel. Wow, that's insane. All of this stuff. Like, what a legacy to leave, right? That legacy's massive. Huge. Huge. All right, here's something huge for you. New company I'm working with called Glint. Now, you guys know that I worked in the brokerage world for a long time, and I traded physical gold. And a lot of people bought physical. They go out and they go buy physical gold. And what happens is they have it and know what to do with it. Well, this is when Glint comes in. Glint comes in, they're in Europe, and they got a great idea. For all those people, you've got the physical gold, you got it stored somewhere. Let us store it for you, and we're going to send you out a MasterCard. You can use it anywhere. And if you want to use it, we'll just essentially shave it off the gold that you have. You're like, what? Yeah, that's what's incredible. It is amazing. It's great if you're traveling, anything. For so many people I know have gold sitting around, and I used to always laugh and go, buying gold sounds great, but a lot of people are buying it for the end of the world. And I thought, well, if the end of the world comes and you happen to survive and you need something, you really need gold at that point in time. You're the only one there. Oh, yeah, I never thought of that. With this, you can use your gold. You can spend it. It is incredible. Provides more control and choice for you. Offers regulated and safe choice. Independent, reliable form of money. It is incredible. Check it out for yourself. Go look it up. GlintPay.com right now. Check it out for yourself. You're going to love it. GlintPay.com. Glint Pay. Gold is the most reliable source of value. Glint is the only way to spend it. Go to GlintPay.com. That's GlintPay.com. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. ChadBenson. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Take one giant step to the left.
Did you ever have anyone embarrass you like this?
One giant step to the right.
That's all that separates you from everything else that came from slime.
You are now in the alt middle, where it's just right.
Call if you get weird.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
Maybe Spider-Man, because my publisher didn't want, when I told him the idea, he hated it. So we had a book we were going to kill. And when you're going to kill a book, nobody cares what you put in the last issue. You're killing it. So I put Spider-Man in it and put him on the cover. And the book sold like crazy.
Yeah, it sure did. Stan Lee, age 95, passed away. Talked about Spider-Man. It was very interesting. So it was a throwaway character, essentially. He liked it. Nobody else did. So they put it in the last book, and this is what happens.
My publisher came running into me a month later when we got the sales figures, and he said, Stan, you remember that character of yours, Spider-Man, that we both loved so much? Let's do a series of it. And that moment, I think, was the crowning moment for me.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you get one of those, think about this. If you're a person, and I've talked to many writers, and I've got friends who have written some really big movies, most of you guys have probably seen, and they're like, just like Phil and I joke all the time about like just one hit, right? Could you imagine having this many hits over and over again, and knowing that even though he's passed on, lived a great life, 95 years young as he passed away, but knowing that all of those things are going to live on and on and on and on, that's massive. That is huge to think about the fact that this is going to continue to go on, but passed away, and I was just sitting there thinking, I have no idea what they're going to do now. It's like, what? Wait, what are you guys going to do at this point in time, Hollywood? Because, I guess we'll just have to take what we got. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. The fire is going on. The fighting is going on. That's not good. And I'm not talking about just the fight itself, which is going on. I'm talking about the politics of it, which is absolutely ugly. That we're in a situation where we've got this massive fight going on. And, of a fire that's destroying a good portion of California. And you got politics with the president and with the likes of Jerry Brown, Moonbeam, going over it. And finally, over the weekend, other people are like, screw politics. This is more important.
Campfires James Woods tweeted over 96,000 times. Marie Irby was looking for an uncle who was missing after the fires. A retweet from Woods helped connect the family.
The only way that the opportunity presented itself was through social media.
The hashtag proved bigger than politics when actress Alyssa Milano, who disagrees with Woods on just about everything, had difficulty finding a place to evacuate her horses. Woods leapt in to help, tweeting out she needs help with 5 horses.
Yeah. And that was, and she even said, she tweeted back at him, while we don't agree on a lot of things, this is more important. Thank you very much, James Woods. That's what it should be about in this. And that's what, again, it's the unity. It's not what makes us different that makes us stronger. It's what makes us in many ways the same that makes us stronger, right? Diversity is great only to a certain extent. And all of these fighting, you realize that all of this crap means very little. It does. It means very little. When you think about the overall situation that's going on in places like California, whether it be the Thousands Oak shootings or whether it be what took place and still taking place in the fires, or whether it be the hurricanes or any of that stuff, none of that means anything, right? The right, the left, any of that stuff, it's all just a giant joke and talking points for all intents and purposes. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Love hearing from you. We are going to talk, speaking of that, and I found this to be very interesting, and we'll break it down for you, what took place over the weekend on Saturday Night Live with Pete Davidson. And it was very interesting. If you don't know what it is, we'll tell you the story from last week and how this week it really goes to show you that, guess what? We can actually talk about things without yelling at each other and turning things into ginormous cluster blanks. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show. Here's your Twitter. It's the Chad Benson Show.
Chad Benson Show.
Independent in thoughts and punk rock in life. It's the Chad Benson Show.
We're all very exhausted, but at this point, we have people depending on us. We have a job to do, and we're not going to stop until these fires are put out.
Yeah, those fires are going to take a long time to be put out when you look at the nastiness of what they're facing, especially when you put weather in there. And we joke about it all the time here. Nature will mess you up. And nature really is the baddest thing on the planet. It really is. Right? When nature's done with us, I always said, we could debate the climate change, who causes what. In the end, nature will decide when it's time for us to go. And nature is doing what nature does. You've got the nasty winds. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. You've got dry conditions all the way through next week into potentially the week after that. So you're going to go all the way through Thanksgiving week into the weekend and potentially longer without any real chance of rain. That could change, and over at least the next 24 to 48 hours, you're going to have hard, nasty winds. It's a recipe for disaster.
We definitely have had a large drought. We did have a spike in precipitation last year, which gave us a lot of grass crop, and now we're back kind of in a drought right now, so it's just a recipe for destruction.
Boom. There you go. So we'll see what takes place over the next couple days, but it is going to get ugly, ugly, ugly before it gets better. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at us. Of course, last week, all of Washington went to flutter after Sessions was gone. Bam, it's gone. He's out. And now it's what will happen to Mueller, and the fight is going on. And this is the fight because they think they've got it. And over the weekend, it's like, everybody, you guys, this is it, right? Like, Trump is done. He's dusted. They've got him now. Mueller is, unless they fire him soon, Mueller is gone. And of course, there's we've got to protect him at this moment in time. We can't do anything but that. And this Whitaker guy, he's just a lackey for Trump. That's it.
Well, the very first thing, obviously, is to protect the Mueller investigation. President's dismissal of Attorney General Sessions and his appointment of Whitaker, who's a complete political lackey, is a real threat to the integrity of that investigation. That investigation is of utmost importance in making sure that we adhere to the rule of law and that the administration is held accountable. And we will certainly hold hearings on that. And our very first witness after January 3rd, we will subpoena we will summon, if necessary, subpoena Mr. Whitaker.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to get over and over again. And people are saying, this is it. I mean, Trump is absolutely done. They're going to come for him hard, and they're not going to stop at all. This is it. I mean, it is going to be an ugly situation. And I think it has the potential to be that way, but I don't know if it's going to be, because I read a great article over the weekend. It was in the Wall Street Journal about the fact that the top Democrats really don't want any part of this. As far as impeachment, they want the investigations. They want to make it uncomfortable for him. They want to put some, let's put some checks with the balances and vice versa. But what they don't want to do is be seen as so politically partisan to the point of ridiculousness that comes back and it backfires on them. And I think that smarter heads will prevail. I do think there'll be investigations. I do think they're going to do everything they can to get their hands on every piece of tax return they possibly can. I do think they may potentially open up a new situation when they look and investigate in a different way, Russia, but only to the point where the public can tolerate it. Because once the public gets bored with it, that's when it backfires. And the last thing they want is 2020 to be rolling here and everything kind of slowly, surely dies down. The economic boom that we're having, all of this stuff slowly but surely dies down, and everybody can point to a single time when it started to happen, and that was when the Democrats came into power, which means they know they'll be getting served if that happens.
I think he was appropriately appointed legally. I don't think he has to recuse himself. I am confident the Mueller investigation will be allowed to come to a good, solid conclusion, that there will be no political influence put on Mr. Mueller by Mr. Whitaker to do anything other than Mr. Mueller's job. I'm confident that Mr. Mueller will be allowed to do his job without interference.
Yeah, I think so, too. I think everybody makes a big, like we tend to do. Like what we tend to do in this country. Something happens and we make a huge deal out of it when it really doesn't need to be, and people panic and freak out, and you've got people marching in the street, protect Mueller, protect Mueller. Yeah. And, because you're playing to a base, right? So you've got to say the most outrageous things, like you don't even understand if we don't protect Mueller. If we don't in some way, shape, or form put in some sort of protection for him, it is going to just be insane, and we will never be able to protect him, and eventually he'll be destroyed. Shut up. I think you'll be absolutely fine. I think sooner rather than later, this thing's going to come to an end. But I do think that the Democrats over the coming months and few years they're going to make it completely uncomfortable for the president until the public gets bored with it. And there is a certain amount of people that are in the center that lean a little bit left and a little bit right, would like a little bit more oversight, maybe would like to see the president reined in, but don't want to see this turned into a political butchering to the point where we're standing back, watching the economy struggle, seeing them fight and do nothing whatsoever. And we could go, well, there you guys go. Therein lies what it is. You guys, you wanted this, you got your opportunity, and it was only to take down the president. You didn't care about anything else that was going on. You didn't care about health care. You didn't care about infrastructure. You didn't care about immigration. You didn't care about any of that stuff. They'll pay the price for that. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. So last weekend, Pete Davidson, who is a cast member on Saturday Night Live, came out and he went after Dan Crenshaw, who was then running to be a congressman in Texas, and he has an eye patch. And he said he looked like a hitman from a porno movie, and he lost his eye in war or something stupid like that. Something very flippant about it. And a lot of people hammered him. And Dan Crenshaw came out, and he won on Tuesday, and he was just like, we don't need to argue and fight with each other. Well, guess what happened, kids? Over the weekend, SNL stepped up.
I made a joke about Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw, and on behalf of the show and myself, I apologize. It was a poor choice of words. The man is a war hero, and he deserves all the respect in the world. And if any good came of this, maybe it was that for one day, the left and the right finally came together to agree on something. That I'm a
And I like the fact that Pete stood up and basically said, look, I was an a-hole, I screwed up, and, boom. And then all of a sudden, out comes old Congressman-elect Dan.
Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw, everyone. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for making a Republican look good.
I just wanted to say, for people that don't know, the reason you're wearing an eye patch right now is that you lost your eye to an IED in Afghanistan during your 3rd combat tour. And I'm sorry.
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate you saying that.
So we good?
We're good. Apology accepted.
I like that. Talking, not fighting, not arguing. It's a wonderful thing. And here's the great thing. I like the fact that nobody called. There was a few people out there. Nobody called for Pete to be fired. They wanted an apology, right? And comics will step over the line. And in this day and age, it's how we take it. It's no longer how it was meant. And it was a flippant thing. And I could see how many comics would do something sometimes flippant and stupid because he was trying to be funny. And I like the fact that people didn't call for him to be fired, to be ostracized, to never work again, which is what we tend to do in this country nowadays, is we find somebody, we want to chop them down to size because they don't have our belief system. Then not only do we want to chop them down to size, we want to make them apologize, we want to make them, proverbially fall on the sword, and then we want them to go away and to never work again and to eventually just disappear off the face of the earth and lose everything, which is insane.
There's a lot of lessons to learn here. Americans can forgive one another. We can remember what brings us together as a country and still see the good in each other. This is Veterans Day weekend, which means that it's a good time for every American to connect with a veteran. Maybe say thanks for your service, but I would actually encourage you to say something else. Tell a veteran, never forget. When you say never forget to a veteran, you are implying that as an American, you are in it with them.
Yeah. Absolutely. And here it is, Veterans Day weekend. We had Veterans Day yesterday. A lot of people are celebrating it today. And it's important. It absolutely is important that we remember that. And I like the fact that there wasn't any anger. Even when he came out last week and he said, it was kind of a jerk thing to do. He didn't want the guy destroyed, right? We don't have that anymore. What we do now is somebody that gets wronged, right? Whatever it is, a joke goes awry, whatever. And rather than somebody coming out and saying, look, it was a joke. It was what it was. It went a little bit awry. And the person apologized and we shake hands and we turn to go their way. What ends up happening is the person that was supposedly offended almost at times doesn't have a choice because it's what the mob wants. And that's not good. And I love the fact that he came out last week immediately and he kind of dampened it down and didn't want to get into it in the way where he wanted the guy destroyed, thought it was kind of a Richard thing to do, which it was. And we moved forward.
Not separated by some imaginary barrier between civilians and veterans, but connected together as grateful fellow Americans. We'll never forget the sacrifices made by veterans past and present. And never forget those we lost on 9/11, heroes like Pete's father. So I'll just say, Pete, never forget.
Never forget.
That's right. Pete Davidson's dad was killed on 9/11. Just little things like that people don't realize or know because all they know about him is he's got that weird hair and he's got tattoos and he was dating Ariana Grande and engaged to be married now. She's made a song about how horrible he was, I guess. So I think it's a good lesson. I think it's a lesson we need to learn more and more. That, hey, we're kind of all in this together, right? Like this ship is moving in a certain direction. We can row together, we can row against each other, but we're all on this boat, so nobody's getting off of it. So we can either figure out a way to coexist in a way that is, we got our trade-offs, we're not going to agree at 100%, but it doesn't mean that we need to destroy each other. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Love hearing from you. Man, I was just Stan Lee. Stan Lee died. For those of you who don't know who Stan Lee is, he was, he was just an amazing a guy that put together so many things from the comic book world that now we have movie after movie. There's almost not a 2 or 3 month period where there isn't a Stan Lee movie coming out in some way, shape, or form. And I think next month, is it Once Upon a Deadpool, I think, is coming out. Of course, he was one of the co-creators, co-writers of some of the stuff for Deadpool, which comes out. It's the PG-13 of Deadpool. But he's got his hands in so many things, and it's amazing. He passed away at 95, and I was just going over Fantastic Four. You got Spider-Man. And for a bunch of people who loved the movies, didn't quite know who he was. He's on Big Bang Theory a lot. It's just nuts. Just crazy. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show. Twitter. ButcherBox. Speaking of crazy. So I love ButcherBox. So I've had so much of, and if you don't know what it is, I'm going to tell you, so take a deep breath. So what ButcherBox is it's a box that comes to your house monthly, right? And in it is the most incredible meats. Yeah. Meats. Huge. Massive. I had bacon yesterday. It was just, it was just so amazing. And so what they're doing right now is it's grass-fed, grass-finished. They got these chickens that are organic, free-range. They're massive. They've got pork, right? So the heritage-bred pork, what happens is the way that they raise their pork, they're raised to keep all their fat and flavor, right? So it's just the most amazing thing. It's just so incredible. It is everything. It's so easy to cut through. And like the pork, the first time I ate the pork chops, somebody texts me and says, pork chops are gross because you gotta have applesauce or something like that. I said, no, try this. And they did. And they're like, wow. I know, right? Incredible. So here's what they're doing for you kids. It's less than $6 a meal. It is the best cuts you're ever going to get. Sam the Butcher from the Brady Bunch? Nah, no chance to have any kind of cuts like this. So if you join today, you're going to get a subscription. You're going to save $20 off. You're going to get free bacon for the life of it, and it's coming to your house. Go to butcherbox.com/Chad. That's butcherbox.com/Chad. Butcherbox.com/Chad. It is absolutely amazing. Your stomach will thank me. I don't know if your belt will, but your stomach will. That I can promise you. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Wrap it up straight ahead. Useless fact of the day.
Serving up talk radio medium rare and dripping with irony. It's Chad Benson.
As word spread through northeast France that there was an armistice ending the war, some troops kept fighting, like Private Henry Gunther from Baltimore.
They didn't want to actually let go of it, and if they had let go of it sooner, I think that more people, including him, may have been alive.
Carol Aikman is Gunther's great niece. He was shot and killed by a German soldier at 10:59 in the morning on November 11th, 1918, 1 minute before the armistice took effect.
He kind of volunteered to do whatever he could to try to redeem himself, if you will.
Gunther had been demoted after he criticized conditions in his camp, but had his rank of sergeant restored posthumously.
Yeah, the World War I this weekend marked the 100th year. And if you've never seen it, it is just, they go back and look through history, and they've got a couple new documentaries that are coming out about it that they've really, I think Peter Jackson is doing one where they restored a lot of it into color. And it is amazing to see, first of all, where we've come in 100 years as far as warfare has gone, but just how insane it was and how just absolutely frightening. And, they were dropping bombs out of airplanes by hand. I mean, you had the trenches, you had all of these things, and it was an awful way. It was a step up from how we used to fight with swords and hand-to-hand combat, but not too far. It was brutal, and what killed most of them was elements. It wasn't each other, it was the elements. And I think it was 1 million Frenchmen died. Back in the day when you're like 1 million people just from the front. I mean, that's the insanity of what that was. And it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And where we've come in 100 years. So when you think about this, and many of us are celebrating Veterans Day today, you think about all of this stuff and the craziness of the wars and the things that are happening and what men and women who serve, and especially our military, but worldwide, they're celebrating, the 100-year anniversary of this war coming. It was the war to end all wars that didn't actually end anything because, lo and behold, 2 decades later, away we went again to something that was even more horrific. But it's frightening to think about that. And where we are now in just 100 years, we've got to do better. And we got to look at our veterans, and we got to thank them for all the things we have, because too many times in our life, we take way too much for granted, especially when it comes to our Constitution and all of those things. We've got to do better for them, and we've got to do better for us, and realize how lucky we are to be in this country, to have the things we have, and to have that Constitution, but people that are willing to die for that Constitution on a voluntary basis. It is amazing. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Love hearing from you. Check out thechadshow.com. Grab your podcast, TuneIn Radio, iTunes, iHeart, everywhere. You can grab those podcasts. Do it. Here's your useless fact today. Let's end it on some fun, shall we? Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Written by the one, the only, Barry Manilow. What? Keep cashing those checks, Barry. Keep cashing them. Have yourself a good rest of your Monday. Thanks again to all the veterans out there. Night-night, Jack.
This is the Chad Benson Show.